Yesterday, my phone lit up with a voicemail I never expected to hear. It was from my daughter, the first words she's spoken to me in nearly 3 decades. Her tone was sugar-sweet, dripping with warmth. "Daddy, I've been thinking about you. I heard about your good fortune, and maybe it's time we put the past behind us. Daniel and I would love to have you join us for Thanksgiving. The kids can't wait to finally meet their grandfather." I listened once, then again, then a third time, because with every replay, a smile crept a little deeper across my face. But here's the thing. Olivia doesn't realize that I've been digging around myself these past few weeks. What I uncovered about her perfect life could make anyone's stomach turn. And if you've ever been betrayed by your own blood, then you'll want to stick around. Because this story, it cuts deep before it heals. But let's rewind. 28 years ago, my daughter gave me an ultimatum that shattered us. She told me to either land a so-called respectable job or stay out of her life forever. I was 55 at the time, a mechanic for 37 years. Owned my own place, Carter's Auto Repair over on Maple Street. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills, kept a roof over our heads, and even covered her college tuition. $60,000, scraped together one car repair at a time, every penny stained with oil and earned with calloused hands. Olivia, though, she had bigger plans. She'd married Daniel Bennett, fresh from law school, already climbing into the kind of life you read about in glossy magazines. Big house in Meadowbrook Estates. Country club weekends. Designer clothes. Suddenly, having a grease-covered mechanic for a father didn't fit the picture she wanted to paint. That conversation still plays in my mind like it was yesterday. She walked into my shop dressed in a $2,000 suit, standing stiff as a board. Wouldn't even sit because she didn't want to risk a speck of dirt. "Dad, Daniel's colleagues and our friends have certain expectations," she said, her eyes sweeping around my shop like it was a dump. "I've worked too hard to get here. And this," she gestured at the tools, the cars, the smell of oil. "This doesn't belong in my world." I told her plain and simple, "This is who I am, Olivia. This is what raised you." She didn't blink. "Then maybe you need to become someone else. A banker, a salesman in a dealership, something with a suit and tie." She actually paused to check her manicured nails before finishing. "Or maybe it's better if we keep our distance until you figure it out." I told her how proud I was of the work I did. Reminded her that these hands fixed thousands of cars, kept families safe, and never once cheated a soul. She laughed, out loud. "Dad, you don't get it. In my world, people judge you by your job, and what you do is embarrassing." October 15th, 1995, that was the last real talk we had. But I didn't give up right away. I wrote her letters, every month at first, then a few times a year, then only for birthdays and Christmas. I tracked her addresses each time she moved. When she changed her name after marriage, I hunted it down again. Every single letter came back stamped return to sender. I tried phone calls too. Numbers worked for a few months, then went dark. The new ones were always unlisted. Still, I kept at it. Birthday cards for grandkids I'd never met. Wedding gifts when I heard through whispers she'd expanded her family. All of it returned unopened. See, being a mechanic teaches you habits. You learn to log, to document, to keep things neat. So I kept everything. A banker's box in my closet filled with 28 years of rejection. Each envelope filed by year in manila folders. 1996, for letters, returned. 2001, birthday card, Christmas gift, returned. 2010, graduation card for a granddaughter, returned. Every attempt filed like service records in a repair shop. My wife, Anna, begged me to stop. "Henry, she's made her choice. Don't keep breaking your own heart." But Anna passed away 10 years ago, and Olivia never even knew. How could she? We hadn't spoken in 18 years. I thought about reaching out, thought maybe she'd want to know her mother was gone. But the truth hit me hard. If my daughter was too ashamed of me while Anna was alive, why would death change anything? So I buried my wife alone. Just me, Mark Carter from the shop next door, and a handful of old friends who knew who I really was. The last letter I sent was 5 years back, Olivia's 40th birthday. I told her about Anna, about how proud her mother had been of her accomplishments, about the scrapbook Anna kept with every clipping from the paper when Olivia's law firm made the business section. That letter never made it either. Came back like all the others. But this time, I noticed something strange, small pencil marks on the corner, like someone had started to open it but changed their mind. I couldn't throw that one in the box. I framed it instead. Set it right on the kitchen table, beside Anna's picture. A reminder of both the love we gave and the rejection we lived with. For almost 3 decades, I kept telling myself that one day Olivia would come around, that sooner or later she'd see family mattered more than the image she was polishing for strangers. I convinced myself that blood and love would outlast shame. Turns out I was dead wrong about that. But I wasn't wrong about my habit of keeping records, because 3 weeks ago, everything flipped upside down. The same daughter who once acted like I didn't exist suddenly found a reason to speak my name again. It happened on October 15th, 2023, exactly 28 years to the day since she gave me that ultimatum. The phone rang at 7:30 in the morning. On the other end was a man's steady, formal voice. "Mr. Carter? My name is Michael Torres, attorney with Torres Rodriguez and Associates in Boston. I'm calling about your uncle, Robert Carter. Uncle Rob. The last real family I had after Anna passed. 15 years ago, he'd packed up and moved east, said he wanted to see the ocean before he got too old to appreciate it. We'd kept in touch, Sunday phone calls, birthday cards back and forth. He was the only person who still made me feel like I belonged somewhere. I'm afraid I have sad news," the lawyer said. "Robert passed away last Tuesday. Heart attack. Very sudden." I sat down hard at the kitchen table, my eyes landing on Anna's picture and that framed letter from Olivia. "He left clear instructions that you be contacted immediately," Torres went on. "Mr. Carter, your uncle has left his entire estate to you, his apartment building in Back Bay, his investment portfolio, and his cash assets. The total value is approximately $9.1 million. I actually thought I'd misheard him. "I'm sorry, did you say 9 million? "Yes, sir," he said. 9.1 million. Your uncle was quite successful in real estate. He spoke of you often. He said you were the only one in the family who stayed true to yourself. 9.1 million. Uncle Rob, who I'd pictured living off a pension and modest savings, had built a fortune under everyone's nose. Torres kept talking about probate and paperwork, but his words washed over me. All I could hear was Olivia's last cold statement to me. "Maybe it's better if we keep our distance until you figure it out." Well, I'd figured it out all right, just not the way she imagined. And like any big estate, the inheritance was public record. Had to be for taxes. By October 18th, the Boston Herald ran a tiny item in their business section. Local real estate mogul leaves $9.1 million estate to nephew in Ohio. By October 20th, the story made our local paper, the Meadowbrook Gazette, the same paper that used to print proud little blurbs about Olivia's law firm. I know because Mark brought me a copy that Thursday morning. Mark Carter, no relation, has owned Carter's Parts and Service next to my shop for 20 years. Since Anna died, he's been the closest thing I have to a brother. "Henry, you seen this?" he asked, slapping the paper down on my workbench. "Says here you're rich now." I read the article twice. My name, my uncle's name, the exact dollar amount, all laid out for anyone to see. "Well, I'll be damned," I said finally. "You gonna retire? Buy yourself a yacht?" Mark grinned. I thought about it. What does a 70-year-old mechanic do with $9 million? I'd never had fancy tastes, never wanted much beyond good tools and honest work. "Maybe I'll keep working," I told him. "These hands wouldn't know how to be idle." That was Thursday morning, October 20th. By that evening, the phone rang again. Unknown number. Normally, I don't answer calls after dinner unless I know who's on the other end, but something told me to pick up. Daddy. 28 years since I'd heard that word in her voice. It sounded different now. Older, measured, almost cautious. "Daddy, it's Olivia. Olivia Bennett, your daughter." Like I might have forgotten. "I heard about Uncle Rob. I'm so sorry for your loss. I know how much he meant to you." Funny thing, she'd never met Uncle Rob, never even knew I spoke to him every week. Yet now she was full of sympathy. "I've been thinking about you so much lately, Daddy. About us. About all the time we've wasted being apart." I said nothing, just listened, trying to understand what had really changed. I know I haven't been the daughter I should have been. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Daddy. Sorry. After 28 years of returned letters, she was sorry. Daniel and I have been talking about family, she went on. About what really matters. The kids are older now. They're asking questions about their grandfather. They want to meet you. My grandchildren, 19 and 22 years old, raised on who knows what story about the man who paid for their mother's college. I was hoping maybe we could get together soon, talk about things. Maybe you could come for dinner? I finally found my voice. That's real nice of you to call, Olivia. So you'll think about it? About coming to visit? I'll think about it. I love you, Daddy. I've always loved you. When she hung up, I sat at that kitchen table for an hour, staring at the framed letter that had come back marked returned to sender 5 years ago. Mark came by around 9 o'clock, found me still sitting there. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said. Close, I replied. I heard from Olivia. His face darkened. He'd watched me grieve her absence for nearly 3 decades. What did she want? I handed him the newspaper article and told him about the call. Mark just shook his head, his jaw tightening. Henry, that girl hasn't said 2 words to you since Bill Clinton sat in the Oval Office. Now she hears you're sitting on a pile of money and, boom, suddenly you're Daddy again. I knew he was right. He'd earned the right to say it. But there was still a part of me, the same stubborn streak that wrote letters for 28 straight years, that wanted to believe maybe she'd changed. What are you going to do? He asked. I'm going to think it over real careful, I said, though my mind was already moving. Truth was, Olivia wasn't the only one doing some thinking. For weeks I'd been feeling that itch in my gut, the one mechanics get when something rattles under the hood, and I'd decided it was time to start digging myself. Mark wanted me to call her back that night and let her have it. He had some colorful ideas about where she could shove her dinner invitation. 28 years, Henry. 28 years of her treating you like dirt, and now she wants a big happy family because you're rich? Tell her to go to hell. I understood his anger. Mark had been there through the worst of it. Those days when another envelope would come back stamped return to sender, and I'd sit at my bench staring at my tools, wondering how I'd failed as a father. But I didn't call Olivia back that night, or the next. Instead, I did what I've always done when something doesn't add up. I popped the hood and started looking for loose wires. Mark, I need to know exactly what Olivia's been saying about me all these years, I told him. Why torture yourself? You already know she's ashamed of you. No, I said. I need the specifics. I need to know how deep this goes. That's when I made the call that would change everything. Chris Morgan runs a little private investigation outfit above Miller's Deli on Main Street. Known him since high school, before he became a cop, before he opened his own shop. He's one of those guys who can find out things without making a scene. Henry Carter, he said when he picked up. I'll be damned. Haven't seen you since Anna's funeral. How have you been holding up? I'm doing okay, Chris, but I need your help. I told him about Olivia's sudden phone call, about the 28 years of silence, about the itch in my gut. I want to know what she's been telling people about me, her friends, her coworkers, folks at that fancy country club. I want to know exactly what story she's selling. Chris went quiet for a moment. Henry, sometimes it's better not to know. I've got 9 million reasons to disagree with you on that, I said. Fair enough. My rate's $100 an hour plus expenses. This kind of social digging, maybe 25 hours of work. You sure you want to drop $2,500 just to confirm what you already suspect? I thought about Uncle Rob, about the way he built his fortune brick by brick, and about the neat rows of returned letters sitting in my closet. Chris, I've spent 28 years wondering what I did wrong. $2,500 to find out the truth is money well spent. All right then, give me 2 weeks, he said. While Chris did his digging, Olivia called twice more. Once to check how I was coping with Uncle Rob's death. Once to ask if I'd thought about visiting. Both times she slipped in a mention of my good fortune or windfall, though she dressed it up as concern. Both times her voice had that careful, rehearsed quality, like she was reading from a script. On the second call, she said something that stuck like a burr. Daddy, I hope you know the money doesn't matter to us. Daniel and I are doing fine. This isn't about your inheritance. This is about family. Funny thing was, I'd never mentioned the inheritance. She brought it up herself both times. After I hung up, I went to the closet and dragged out that banker's box. 28 years of returned letters. I spread them across the kitchen table like evidence at a trial. Each envelope told a story. The cheap apartment address when she was just starting law school, the townhouse after she married Daniel, the Meadowbrook Estates address when they really hit it big. Each one marked return to sender in her own handwriting. Then I noticed something I hadn't before, the postmarks. Some of those letters had sat somewhere for weeks before being sent back. Like someone had picked them up, thought about opening them, then decided against it. That's when it hit me. Olivia had been getting my letters all along. She just chose not to read them. Mark came by that evening and found me sitting there surrounded by envelopes. "What's all this?" he asked. "Evidence," I said. "Evidence of what?" 28 years of choice, Mark. Not shame. Not embarrassment. Choice. Chris called on November 8th. His voice sounded different, tight, cautious. "Henry, I've got your information," he said. "But I think we should meet in person to discuss it. Can you come by my office tomorrow morning?" "That bad?" I asked. "Let's just say you're going to want to sit down when you hear this." I hung up the phone and looked at Anna's picture on the table. "Well, sweetheart," I said aloud. "Looks like we're about to find out what our daughter really thinks of us." Chris's office smelled like stale coffee and cigarettes that had been ground into the walls years ago. He had a fat manila folder sitting on his desk, and the look on his face told me plenty before he even spoke. "Sit down, Henry. Want some coffee?" "No," I said. "Just tell me what you found." He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the desk. It looked like a screenshot from some private social media page. "Your daughter's Facebook," he said. "She's got it locked down tight, but I know how to get a look." I pulled the photo closer. There was Olivia, dressed to the nines at some charity gala, smiling like a queen. Daniel was beside her, and two young adults, had to be my grandchildren, stood with them. The caption underneath hit me like a punch. "The Bennett family supporting the children's hospital fundraiser. We do this every year in memory of my father, who always believed in helping others." "In memory of," I muttered. "Keep reading," Chris said, his voice low. I scanned the comments. "Your father would be so proud. Such a touching tribute. How long has it been since you lost him?" Olivia's reply was right there. "Almost 26 years now. He died in a car accident when the kids were babies. I just try to honor his memory." My hands shook. "She told people I'm dead." Chris didn't flinch. He pulled another page from the folder. "That's not the worst of it. Here's the Meadowbrook Country Club newsletter, April 2019. She gave a speech at their memorial service." I read the highlighted lines. Olivia Bennett spoke movingly about losing her father at a young age and how that loss taught her to value every moment with family. "He was a simple man who worked with his hands, but he had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. I only wish my children could have met him." A simple man. Past tense. My throat burned. Chris's voice dropped even lower. "There's more." He handed me an old newspaper clipping from the Meadowbrook Gazette. My eyes caught the headline. "Henry Edward Carter, 57, of Oakdale, died Tuesday, March 15th, in a single-car accident on Route 9. I read it twice. Then a third time. It was my obituary. It said I'd been an auto mechanic for 30 years. Said I was survived by my daughter Olivia and her husband, Dr. Daniel Bennett. It even suggested donations to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Cleveland in my memory. My handwriting was in the margins. Notes, little edits. This wasn't typed up by a stranger. She'd written it out herself. "She killed me off," I said. My voice cracked. "She wrote my damn obituary while I was still breathing." "The donation was the kicker," Chris said. "I checked with Big Brothers Big Sisters. That year, they got exactly one contribution in your name. $500 from Olivia Bennett. She even gave money in my memory," I whispered. Chris kept pulling papers. "From what I can tell, she started spinning this story around 1997, 2 years after you stopped talking. At first, she just let people assume. Over time, it became a whole tale. The car wreck, the tragedy, how losing you shaped her life. The country club crowd swallowed it whole. They even have a plaque in the memorial garden with your name carved in stone." "A plaque?" my name etched into granite while I was still changing oil and tuning engines a few towns over. And your grandchildren? Chris asked gently. Lily's 22. Noah's 19. They grew up believing their grandfather died in a car accident. Lily even wrote a school essay about it. The grandfather I never knew. Teacher gave her an A+. I couldn't speak. I just stared at that clipping. March 15th, 1997, the date of my so-called death, was Anna's birthday. It was also Anna, my wife's birthday. Olivia had picked her own mother's birthday to bury me on paper. Chris hesitated, then went on. One more thing. I talked to staff at the country club, servers, groundskeepers. The people no one notices. A woman named Laura Morgan told me that just last week, Olivia's been telling folks she expects big changes for her family soon. New opportunities. Exciting developments. When did she start saying that? I asked. October 21st. The timing was like clockwork. October 15th, Uncle Rob dies. I inherit $9.1 million. October 20th, the paper runs the story. October 20th, Olivia calls me after 28 years. October 21st, she's already bragging about new opportunities. Chris, I need copies of every last thing you found, I said. He pushed another folder toward me. Already printed. Question is, what are you planning to do with it? I pushed back my chair, the folder tucked under my arm like a loaded tool bag. I'm going to think this over real careful, I told Chris. You know she's going to call you again, he said. I'm counting on it. I was halfway out the door when he called after me. Henry, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. No father should have to find out his kid thinks of him this way. I turned and looked at him. You know the part that makes me sick, Chris? She even gave $500 to charity in my memory. $500 to buy herself sainthood while she buried me alive on paper. He studied my face. What are you thinking? For the first time in weeks, my smile felt real. I'm thinking about making a donation of my own. 3 days later, 72 hours after I'd left Chris's office with that fat folder of lies, Olivia rang again. This time her voice was different. The careful edge was gone. She sounded almost desperate. Daddy, I've been thinking about our talk, she said. Family's what really matters, especially around the holidays. I let her keep talking, listening for what she wasn't saying. Daniel and I were wondering, would you like to join us for Thanksgiving dinner? It would mean so much to the kids. They're both home from college and can't wait to meet their grandfather. Their grandfather. The man she's told them died in a car wreck before they could walk. That's real nice of you, Olivia, I said. You'll come. Relief flooded her voice like she'd been holding her breath. I'd be honored to meet my grandchildren. Oh, Daddy, that's wonderful. We're eating at 2 o'clock. Dress is casual, just family. Well, she hesitated. We're having a few friends over too. The Brooks, the Whitakers from the country club, Dr. Silva and his wife. Just folks who've become like family to us. So, not a family dinner. A show for the country club crowd. That's quite a guest list, Olivia. Oh, you'll love them. They're all so excited to finally meet you after hearing so much about you over the years. After hearing so much about me, I repeated. I let a beat pass. Actually, Olivia, I'd like to bring someone with me, if that's all right. Silence on the line. Bring someone. My friend Mark Carter. He's been like a brother to me since your mother passed. I suppose that would be fine. Another pause. Does he know about your recent good fortune? There it was. The thing she couldn't stop asking about. Mark doesn't care about money, Olivia. He's just a good friend. Of course. It's just that some people might have expectations when they hear about your inheritance, and I want to protect you from anyone who might try to take advantage. I almost laughed out loud. Olivia Bennett, warning me about people who take advantage. I appreciate your concern, I said. But Mark's not like that. He's been there for me when nobody else was. Another silence. Well then, we'll see you both at 2 o'clock on Thursday. 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. It's the big Tudor house with the circular driveway. I know where you live, Olivia. I've driven by a few times over the years. You have. Man gets curious about his daughter's life, even when she doesn't want him in it. Daddy, she said softly. See you Thursday, sweetheart. After I hung up, I called Mark. She invited you to Thanksgiving dinner? He asked. She did. Henry, This smells like a trap. It is a trap, I said, but not the kind she thinks she's setting. I told him about Chris's investigation, about the obituary, about the plaque with my name on it at the country club. Mark was quiet a long time. Jesus Christ, Henry. She's been telling people you were dead for 26 years. And now she wants you to come to dinner and play grandpa for her country club friends. The same ones who've been mourning you all this time? That's about the size of it. What are you going to do? I'm going to go to dinner. And I'm bringing that folder Chris gave me. Every last page. You want me there? I need you there, Mark. I need a witness for what's coming. What's coming? I looked at the folder spread across my kitchen table next to Anna's picture and that framed letter from 5 years ago. Olivia's been telling stories about me for 26 years. Time somebody told the truth. Henry, these are rich people. Powerful people. Her husband's a respected doctor. She's got connections all over town. You sure you want to go to war with people like that? I thought about Uncle Rob, about the $9.1 million he'd left me because I was the only one who'd stayed true to himself. Mark, I've been dead for 26 years. What do I have to lose? The next morning, Mark swung by the shop with news. You know Laura Morgan? Works at the country club, serves at all their fancy dinners? I knew Laura. She'd been bringing her old Buick to me for years. Always paid cash, always tipped extra at Christmas. What about her? I asked. She stopped by this morning. Wanted you to know there's been some interesting chatter at the club. Mark came into the shop holding a folded napkin, his thumb pressed over a scribble of ink. Laura wrote this down, he said. She figured you'd want to see it. He handed it to me. Laura's handwriting was thin and shaky, like a wire about to snap, but the words were clear as day. She'd been waiting tables at the club when Olivia had lunch with 3 other wives, Mrs. Brooks, Mrs. Whitaker, and Dr. Silva's wife. My daughter, apparently, had been putting on quite a performance. I read the notes twice. According to Laura, Olivia had told them her father had reached out after decades of silence, that I'd come into a bit of money and wanted to reconcile before it was too late. She'd painted the whole thing like I was the one who'd shut the door all these years and was now crawling back. Of course she did. And it got better. Laura wrote that Olivia said I'd been weighed down by pride and regret and had finally realized that family was more important than grudges. She'd cast herself as the generous daughter, magnanimously welcoming back her stubborn old dad. I crumpled the napkin, then straightened it again. Evidence was evidence. Anything else? I asked. Mark nodded. Yeah. Mrs. Brooks asked about your health, whether you were sick or something, since you were suddenly interested in reconciling. Olivia went real quiet, then told them she couldn't discuss details, but that time was precious and she didn't want to waste it on grudges. So now, in her story, I was dying. Perfect. Mark tapped the napkin. Laura also said that after lunch, Olivia made a few calls while clearing her plates. She overheard her talking about managing expectations and making sure Thursday's dinner went smoothly. Sounded like she was coaching someone, probably her husband, on what to say and what to keep quiet. Later that afternoon, my phone rang. A name I hadn't heard in 15 years popped up. George Reynolds. Used to run the insurance office downtown before retiring. Henry, he said, hope you don't mind me calling. Word's out that you and Olivia are patching things up. Small town, you know how it is. Listen, I figured I should give you a heads up. What kind of heads up? My wife plays bridge with some of the country club ladies, George said. They've been talking about you and Olivia for years. What kind of talk? I pressed. He went quiet. Henry, I'm not sure you'll want to hear this. I want to hear it. Olivia's been telling people you've had problems, he said finally. Drinking problems. Maybe some mental health issues after Anna died. Said that's why she had to protect her kids. Another lie. Another brick in the wall she'd built. She say anything else? She told folks you'd reach out once in a while, but always when you were in some kind of bad state. Made it sound like you were unpredictable, unstable. Said she was afraid of you. Afraid. Of me. The man who'd never raised his voice at her, never raised a hand to her. The man who worked himself raw so she could have a better life. George, thanks for telling me. For what it's worth, he said, I never believed any of it. I knew you and Anna. I knew what kind of man you were. After I hung up, I called Chris. I need you to add something to that investigation, I told him. I want to know every story she's told about me over the years. Every version, not just the one where I'm dead. Every excuse she's used to explain why her father wasn't in her life. I want the full picture. Henry, you sure you want to go deeper? Chris asked. What you've already got is damning. I want it all, Chris. Every lie. Every scrap of her narrative. Give me 2 days. That night Mark and I sat at my kitchen table, Chris's original folder spread out like an autopsy report. Mark picked up the fake obituary between 2 fingers. You know what this is really about, he said. This isn't just her being embarrassed about you being a mechanic. This is about her not wanting to explain why she cut you out. It's easier to kill you off on paper than to admit she chose money and status over family. He was right. The obituary, the donation, the memorial plaque, all of it was a stage set to make her the tragic heroine instead of the architect of her father's disappearance. Thursday's going to be interesting, I said. You ready for this? Mark asked. I looked at Anna's picture, at that framed returned letter, at the evidence sprawled across my table like open wounds. I've been ready for 28 years. Chris called back Wednesday morning with his final report. His voice was heavy. Henry, I've got everything you asked for, he said. But I'm warning you, it's going to hurt. I met him at his office one more time. The folder he handed me was twice as thick now. I talked to 12 different people who've known Olivia over the past 28 years, he said. Neighbors, country club members, folks from her law firm, parents from her kids' schools. The stories are consistent, but they've shifted over time. He spread out a timeline he'd drawn, neat handwriting listing dates and quotes like a mechanic's checklist of every part that had failed. From 1995 to 1997, Olivia spun a softer tale about me. She told friends I was difficult, but that she was working through it, playing the part of the patient daughter trying to guide a troubled parent back to the light. By 1997, though, right after she ran that fake obituary, her story shifted. Between 1997 and 2000, I had become the tragic father lost in a sudden accident, a wound she used to justify throwing herself into her career and guarding her new family from the pain of loss. From 2000 to 2010, the legend deepened. In her telling, I turned into a man haunted by demons, still loving but broken, the kind of father you speak of in past tense. That's when she started the charity donations and the memorial speeches. And from 2010 right up to now, I'd been canonized, Saint Dad, the hardworking mechanic who sacrificed everything for his little girl's law degree. In her version, I was the proud ghost who'd approve of everything she'd built. Each rewrite of the story served a new purpose. First to excuse the distance, then to earn sympathy, and finally to brand herself as a paragon of family values. I asked Chris about the mental health rumors. He handed me another stack of notes. That one cropped up around 2005, he said, after her kids were old enough to start asking questions. She began telling people you'd had some sort of breakdown after Anna died, that you'd become unpredictable, and that she had no choice but to shield her children. Anyone ever challenge her story? I asked. A few did, Chris said. Mrs. Reynolds from the Bridge Club once asked why Olivia never visited your grave. Olivia said it was too painful, that she preferred to honor you through action rather than graveside visits. I shook my head. She thought of everything. Chris went on. I also talked to people at her law firm. She's built a big chunk of her professional identity on this. She's spoken at legal conferences about drawing strength from loss, written articles for the Bar Association newsletter about grief and resilience. She's monetized your death, Henry, made a career out of being the brave daughter who lost her father too soon. He passed me a printout from the Ohio State Bar Journal dated 2018. The headline read, Finding Strength in Loss, How Tragedy Shaped My Legal Career by Olivia Carter Bennett. I read the opening paragraph. When my father died suddenly in 1997, I thought my world had ended. He was a simple, hard-working man who sacrificed everything to put me through law school. His death taught me that life is fragile, that we must make the most of every opportunity. She's been dining out on my corpse for 26 years, I muttered. Chris nodded. And the charity angle is deep. Besides that first $500 donation to Big Brothers Big Sisters, she's made annual gifts in your memory, small amounts, 500 here, 1,000 there, but always public, always with your name attached. He showed me a stack of acknowledgement letters, the Henry Carter Memorial Scholarship Fund at the local community college, the Henry Carter Workshop for Disadvantaged Youth at the Boys and Girls Club, each framed as coming from his loving daughter Olivia. Over the years, she'd funneled about $15,000 through these gestures, claiming the tax deductions while burnishing her image as the woman who honored family above all. I leaned back, stunned by the size of the lie. Chris, I need copies of everything. Already done. He pushed a black leather briefcase across the desk, its brass corners gleaming. Organized chronologically, tabs for each section. The original timeline, witness statements, every article, every speech, every donation, and the fake obituary. I opened it. 28 years of deception, laid out as neatly as my bank of returned letters. What are you going to do with all this? Chris asked. I closed the briefcase. I'm going to give Olivia exactly what she's been asking for all these years, a family reunion she'll never forget. Tomorrow was Thanksgiving. Time to see what my resurrection looked like to people who'd been mourning me for a quarter of a century. On Thursday, November 23rd, at 2 o'clock sharp, Mark and I rolled into 1247 Maple Ridge Drive in my 15-year-old Ford F-150. The circular driveway glittered with wealth, a Mercedes S-Class, a BMW X7, a Tesla Model S, and what looked like a Porsche 911. My truck sat there like it had taken a wrong turn. You sure about this, Henry? Mark asked. I patted the briefcase on the seat between us. Never been more sure of anything in my life. Olivia's house was everything I'd pictured. A Tudor-style palace probably worth $2.5 million, with manicured landscaping and a front door that could cost more than most people's cars. I'd put on my best clothes, khakis, a button-down, and the sport coat Anna had given me for our 40th anniversary. Mark had his cleanest flannel and jeans. We looked exactly like what we were, working-class men pulling up to a rich neighborhood with nothing to hide. Olivia opened the door dressed like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle catalog, cream-colored cashmere clinging just right, a strand of pearls around her neck that probably cost more than I used to earn in a good month back at the shop. Daddy, she cried, arms wrapping around me in a hug that felt more like a stage direction than affection. I am so happy you came. Over her shoulder, I could see the living room glowing with warm light, filled to the brim with 12 guests exactly as she had promised. Men in sharp-tailored suits, women in dresses I couldn't name but knew cost a small fortune, crystal wine glasses catching the light like diamonds. It looked less like Thanksgiving and more like a spread in country club living. Everyone, he's here, she announced, her voice high and polished. My father is here. Every head turned. Silence swept the room as a dozen pairs of eyes landed on me, studying, trying to square the man in front of them with whatever story they'd been fed. Curiosity? Confusion? Maybe both. Daddy, I want you to meet some of our dearest friends. She moved with hostess grace, guiding me like I was part of the evening's entertainment. This is Charles Whitaker, president of the Meadowbrook Country Club. A tall silver-haired man stepped forward, his handshake smooth, practiced. Mr. Carter, Olivia has told us so much about you. I bet she has, I said, letting the words hang. And this is Dr. Andrew Silva and his wife, Rachel, and of course Stephen and Diana Brooks. Every introduction was polished, every smile polite. But one woman in a sleek black cocktail dress, Diana Brooks, I guessed, couldn't keep her eyes from widening. Olivia, I thought, didn't you once say your father had passed away? Olivia's laugh rang out, a note too sharp, too rehearsed. Yes, well, that's a long story. A bit of miscommunication that lasted far too long. A miscommunication. That's what she was calling 28 years of ignored letters and unopened cards. Daniel, come meet my father. Dr. Daniel Bennett stepped forward exactly as I had pictured him. Tall, perfectly groomed, a handshake firm enough to prove confidence, but not so strong as to muss his manicured nails. The kind of man who'd never known what it was like to wrench a rusted bolt loose on a frozen morning. Mr. Carter, it is a pleasure to finally meet you. Likewise, I answered, though the word tasted odd in my mouth. And these are our children, Olivia continued. Lily and Noah, your grandchildren. Two young adults stepped into view, both polite but hesitant, like they weren't sure how to handle shaking hands with a ghost. They had Olivia's eyes but softer around the edges. Hi, Grandpa, Lily said carefully. We've heard so much about you. Have you now? I asked. What kinds of things have you heard? Before she could answer, Olivia cut in smoothly. Why don't we all move into the dining room? Dinner is ready. The dining room was a set piece straight out of a glossy magazine spread. Waterford crystal gleamed under soft light. Fine bone china plates aligned with military precision. Silver candlesticks rising from a centerpiece that probably cost more than a month's groceries in my world. 12 chairs circled a massive table fit for an ambassador's banquet. They'd placed me at the head of the table, the guest of honor, the man risen from the grave. Daddy, Olivia said sweetly, would you like to say grace? I rose slowly, briefcase at my feet, and every head bowed in unison. Lord, I began, my voice steady. Thank you for this food, this family, and this chance to finally meet the people who've been so important in Olivia's life. Thank you for bringing us together on this day of gratitude, and thank you for giving me the strength to finally tell the truth. Amen, they chorused, though a few heads lifted with puzzled expressions at that last part. Dinner itself was careful conversation dressed in polite tones. People asked about my health, about whether I planned to retire now, about how I was handling my sudden good fortune. Olivia kept cutting in before I could answer anything too direct. Daddy has always been modest about his accomplishments, she told Dr. Silva when he inquired about my line of work. He's the kind of man who simply goes about making the world a better place without drawing attention to himself. What kind of work did you do, Mr. Carter? Mrs. Brooks asked, curiosity cutting through her practiced manners. I opened my mouth, but Olivia swooped in like a hawk. Automotive services, she said brightly. Very successful. Automotive services. Not a mechanic. Heaven forbid her friends know her father worked in grease-stained coveralls. After the plates were cleared, Olivia lifted her wine glass, her voice ringing clear and strong. Everyone, I'd like to propose a toast. To my father, who has always been my hero, my inspiration. To second chances, to family, and to love that never dies, even when separated by time and circumstance. Glasses clinked, voices echoed. To family, to second chances. I stood slowly, raising my own glass, feeling the weight of eyes on me. Thank you, Olivia. That was beautiful, truly beautiful. I paused, letting the silence stretch. You know, I've been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The chance to finally meet the people who've been so important in my daughter's life. And I am curious, very curious, because I've heard that many of you have been hearing stories about me for decades. Stories about a man you believed was gone. The room grew tight with silence. Olivia's smile faltered, stiff as plaster. Mr. Whitaker, I said, turning to the country club president. Tell me, what exactly has Olivia said about her father? Whitaker shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Well, she's spoken of you often, with great love and admiration. That's nice to hear, I said, nodding slowly. And what else? She's mentioned the sacrifices you made for her education, how proud you were of her success. Were, I repeated softly, tilting my head. Past tense. Interesting choice of words. I reached down, wrapped my fingers around the handle of the black briefcase, and set it on the table right next to my untouched plate. The sound of it clicking down on the linen made more noise than I expected. A few people jumped. Mrs. Brooks, I said, looking at the woman in the sleek black dress. Olivia's told me you two have known each other for quite a while. I'm curious, what exactly has she told you about her family history? Her face drained to the color of paper. Well, she's mentioned losing her father at a young age. She said it shaped her commitment to family values. Losing her father, I repeated slowly. And when did she tell you she lost her father, Mrs. Brooks? She cleared her throat. I believe she said in the late 1990s. A car accident. Without a word, I flipped open the brass locks on the briefcase. Papers waited inside like coiled snakes. I pulled out the fake obituary and slid it down the polished table toward her. This car accident. Mrs. Brooks took it with trembling fingers. Her eyes scanned the print, widened, then darted toward me. She passed it to the next guest like it was contagious. Olivia, Dr. Silva said softly, glancing between the paper and my face. I do not understand. This obituary says 1997, but he's here, alive. Olivia's knuckles were white around her wineglass. I thought the stem might snap. Daddy, what are you doing? She hissed. I'm telling the truth, sweetheart, I said, keeping my voice calm. Something that's been in short supply around here for 28 years. One by one I drew out the evidence. Chris's timeline, the charity receipts, the articles about overcoming loss, each page a nail in the coffin she'd built for me. Dr. Silva, I said, your wife asked me to sign a memorial book when I arrived tonight. A book for people who've lost loved ones. Apparently Olivia told you I died of a heart attack, just like her father. Dr. Silva's wife stared at Olivia, eyes glassy. Why would you? And Mr. Whitaker, I added, turning to the country club president, I understand there's a memorial plaque in your garden. A plaque honoring Henry Carter, beloved father of Olivia Bennett, who died tragically in 1997. No one moved. The only sound was the faint clink of crystal as someone's hand trembled. Every guest stared at the woman at the far end of the table, then at me, then at the papers making their way from hand to hand. For 28 years, I said evenly, my daughter has been telling people I'm dead. She's given speeches about losing me, written articles about grief, raised money for charity in my memory. She built her reputation on being the brave woman who overcame tragedy. Across the table, a young voice broke the silence. Lily's. Mom, she whispered. Grandpa's been alive this whole time? I turned toward her. The whole time, sweetheart. Alive and trying to reach you. Sending letters that came back marked, return to sender. Calling phone numbers that got disconnected. Mailing birthday gifts that were returned unopened. I reached under the table and hefted the banker's box I'd brought from home, setting it down with a dull thud. 28 years of returned letters. Every one kept, dated, organized by year. Olivia finally spoke, her voice ragged. You do not understand. I had to protect my family. You were embarrassing. Your job, your lifestyle, it did not fit with the life I was building. So you killed me off, I said quietly. Easier than explaining why you could not have me in your life. The confession hung in the air like a foul smell. Easier for who, Olivia? I asked. Easier for you to build your reputation on my corpse? Easier to play the grieving daughter than admit you were ashamed of your own father? At the far end of the table, Mark pushed back his chair and stood. His voice was steady and hard. I have known Henry Carter for 20 years. He's the most decent, honest, hard-working man I've ever met. And while you people have been lighting candles for a ghost, he's been grieving the loss of a daughter who was still alive. Mrs. Brooks pushed back her chair slowly. I think we should go. No, I said sharply. Please stay. This concerns all of you. I reached into the briefcase again and pulled out the newspaper clipping about Uncle Rob's inheritance. I held it up so everyone could see the headline. Olivia called me 3 weeks ago for the first time in 28 years. Want to guess why? I tapped the date at the top of the article. October 20th. This story runs in the paper. October 20th, Olivia calls me out of the blue. Coincidence? Olivia was crying now, but not the way a daughter cries when she's sorry. These were the hot, angry tears of someone exposed. You had no right, she spat. You had no right to come here and destroy my life. Your life? I said, my voice rising for the first time all evening. You've been living off my death for 26 years. You want to know what I'm going to do with Uncle Rob's money? I paused, letting the question hang in the charged air. I pushed back my chair and stood, the weight of every eye in that room pressing on me. From the inside pocket of my coat, I pulled out a check I'd written that very morning. $9.1 million. Made out to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Greater Cleveland. The same charity, I said, holding it high so no one could miss it, that my daughter donated $500 to in 1997, back when she told the world I was dead. The room went still, not even a cough or the scrape of a fork. I'm giving away every single penny of Uncle Rob's inheritance, I said slowly. Every dime is going to help kids who don't have fathers in their lives. Kids like my own grandchildren. Kids who were told their grandfather had died in some car wreck. This money is for the children who never get the chance to know their grandfathers because somebody decided those men weren't good enough to be family. You could have heard a pin drop. Faces drained pale, jaws tight. Olivia, I went on. You had 28 years to have a father. You chose country clubs and social climbing over blood. You chose appearances over love. That door is closed now. Permanently. I bent down, snapped my briefcase shut, and tucked it under my arm. Mark rose beside me, steady as ever. I looked toward my grandchildren. Lily, Noah, you're welcome to reach out if you want to know the man your grandfather really was. But hear me now. I will never again play dead for anybody's convenience. Then Mark and I walked out of that perfect Tudor house, out into the bite of November air, leaving behind 12 stunned guests and one daughter whose lies had finally burned down around her. The fallout came fast. By Friday, Laura at the country club told Mark that 3 families had already canceled their holiday parties. By Sunday, word was all over Meadowbrook. The woman who faked her father's death for 28 years, unmasked at her own Thanksgiving dinner. The following Tuesday, my phone rang. Dr. Silva. His voice was solemn. Mr. Carter, I owe you and your family an apology. Rachel and I, we truly mourned your passing all these years. We feel sick realizing we were deceived. No apology necessary, doctor, I told him. You folks were victims too. He hesitated. For what it's worth, Olivia won't be invited to our Christmas party this year. A lie like that, it tells you everything about a person's character. By November 30th, the gossip was thicker than grease on an engine block. Word was, Daniel Bennett filed for legal separation. According to Mark's sources, he told his colleagues he couldn't stay married to someone who built her whole life on a graveyard lie. Meanwhile, the papers picked up the story about the donation. Local mechanic donates $9.1 million inheritance to children's charity. That was the headline. And in the article, the reporter quoted me saying it was given in memory of all the children who grow up without knowing their grandfathers. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, my voicemail pinged. Olivia's voice, sharp and frantic. Daddy, we need to talk. You've destroyed my life, my marriage, my reputation. Everyone treats me like a pariah. This has gone too far. Call me back. I didn't. But my grandchildren did. Lily first, then Noah. Their messages were nothing like their mother's. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry we never knew you were alive. Mom told us you died when we were babies. We met 3 times over the next month at a coffee shop near campus. They wanted to know about their grandmother Anna, about the kind of woman she was. They wanted to hear what I was like before their mother started spinning her stories. And eventually, the question came, why did Mom lie for so long? She was ashamed of me, I said plainly. She thought a mechanic wasn't good enough for the life she wanted. Lily's eyes filled. That's not your fault, Grandpa. No, sweetheart, I told her. It's not. Life has settled since then. I still work down at the shop, still come home with grease under my fingernails. The check is sitting in the bank, waiting to be sent as promised. Mark drops by every morning with coffee, and we talk about everything except Olivia. Sometimes Lily and Noah stop by after classes. They like hearing about their grandmother, the way she laughed, the way she believed in family, the way she never turned her back on anyone. One day I drove past the country club, quiet as could be. I noticed something missing in the memorial garden. The plaque with my name had been quietly taken down. No announcement, no explanation. Just gone. And you know what? That was fine by me. Thanks for being here. If this story stayed with you, support the channel, like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts.